I can take as much of my time as I want because I have the time.
You do, my brother, you do.
Principal and Vice Chancellor of University of Johannesburg, Professor Aaron Rensburg in absentia, Deputy Vice Chancellor here present, Professor Tinyi Komaluleke, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Internationalization, Advancement and Student Affairs, Executive Deans of Faculties at the University of Johannesburg, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Lionel Posthumus, Dr. Joe Mahanyaka, Director of the Soweto Campus of University of Johannesburg, Executive Director of Institutional Advancement at UJ, Mr. Malko Daminahonov. I told you, I warned you. Mr. Moraka Rex Chua, Managing Director, the Wright Associates, the founding company of the Hugh Masekela Annual Lecture, Hugh Masekela, and the entire Masekela clan, representatives of the Ministry of Arts and Culture here present, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and lastly, but not least, my wife. When Hugh asked me to give this lecture, I was pleasantly surprised. Here is a man I respect, and a man who international recognition, who has all this international recognition. You could have asked anyone to give this talk today, but he chose me. Me of all the people. I am grateful and humbled. Thank you very much, Hugh. Let me take the opportunity to thank Professor Aaron Rensburg, Principal of the University of Johannesburg, for allowing the name of this great institution to be linked to the name of a great South African musician and ambassador. Both Hugh and the University of Johannesburg are great ambassadors of what is the best about South Africa and Africa. Congratulations for hosting the first annual Hugh Masekela lecture. How do you measure the impact of a man or a woman? That is the title of the lecture tonight. This is the question I will endeavor to grapple with, ladies and gentlemen. In order to answer this question, I'll try to examine the great life of my friend, Hugh Masekela. As I was preparing this lecture, by the way, I was prepared in Shona, but now it's in English. As I was preparing this lecture, looking at Hugh's life, the challenges and the failures and the successes, I realized something. At this time in history, when we as Africans are being challenged in so many ways, as we try to strike a balance between taking up more and more of Western cultures versus holding on to the things that give us our identity, our languages, our values, our music, our dances, our way of dealing with conflict, and our sisterhood and our brotherhood. We need people who can remind us what it is to struggle, to fight, and to win in the end. Hugh, as many of you know, has taken his music to all corners of the world. In fact, he has traveled around the world more times that many of us have been to the shops to buy bread. He has produced enduring hits and has performed before presidents, kings, queens, and ordinary people like you and me. If I were to mention his list of awards, it would take up the better part of this lecture. But all these things are not how I personally measure Brayu. None of these things should ever be how we measure or define anyone. How do you measure the impact of a man or a woman? My first interaction with Hugh Masekela was undirectional. I heard him on the radio about 1980, 1981, thereabout. Or the wireless, as we called it back then. He was playing the trumpet in Miriam Makeba's band. And during one of these solos, something happened. I heard him, and he stood out. He stood out. He stood out. At the time, it was really difficult to get any news or hear music from black artists from South Africa, as the apartheid regime seriously stifled all this. To hear black artists on radio was something really interesting for me. Back in 1958, when the first radio station in Zimbabwe started, the music was mostly European American. And as I grew up as a teenager, I fell in love with the music of Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, Arthur Conley, and other soul singers of the time. I started singing their songs at school with my friends and would get into trouble for disturbing class. But I had no idea that any of us would ever be aired on radio. The inspiration was just to be able to sing. When I first met Hugh Masekela in 1993 in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, I was already a professional musician and had been following his work. I admired and respected his talent. We exchanged some words and then moved on with our lives. It was only 3 years later, after I began to grasp some key aspects of Brayu's character, I was performing at a club called Job's Night Spot in Harare. Brayu was in the audience, and from nowhere, he jumped on stage and joined me and my band. His energy, his laughter, his aura, his naughty smile were also infectious. Our friendship has developed very steadily over the years, and we have become serious fans of each other's work. We have performed on stage together many times, and just last month in August, stepped into the studio together for the first time. A dream come true for me. A truly dream come true. What a joy that was, working with you, having dinner with him, hosting him in Zimbabwe, as we have done many times before. You see, in recent years, each time I meet you, his music, his status as a legend, and his accolades have grown. But he as a person, he as a person, his humility, what we call in Shona, Hunu, or as you would say it here, Ubuntu back here, remains the same. He's still the same Hugh Masekela who wasn't a star, a Hugh Masekela that became a star, a Hugh Masekela who is yet to be a maestro. He still remains Hugh Masekela. If you approach him as a celebrity, yes, you get the celebrity kind of a man. The man who is trying to deal with like fun. But I have seen over and over again the magic that happens when people approach you as another human being. He responds to them like a father, like a brother, with humility, with warmth, except if you're wearing weave. As we all know, Brian doesn't look like weave. So we are here, we are you and I, old men in many respects. He is older than I, but also young in other respects. It's been over 30 years since we first met. And when you get to this age, you start to look back over your life and ask certain questions. Questions like, what has my real contribution been? How will my life be measured? How do you measure the impact of a man or a woman? You, when I look at your life, when I think of all the amazing things you have done, I think what a waste it all would be if you had not been not humble enough to realize that this amazing gift you have been given was not for you, but to inspire others, to heal the broken hearts, to touch the hearts, to move people, to sing to a bigger and universal heartbeat of life. Yes, I know your struggles of the time in your life when you battled with things, but I'm not here to focus on that. My focus is on the fact that you overcame those things and came out a better person, a better human being. It's not really what we achieve, but what we overcome. There's Mtukudzi way. We all get respect from what we overcome. An uplifting and spiritually healing human being. That brings me to my first point on how to measure the impact of a man or a woman. You measure a man or a woman by what they have overcome. You measure someone not by how much they have done, or how many awards they have received, or how many degrees they have. Instead, you measure people by what they overcame to achieve those things. Because that tells you the story of their strength of character. Or to put it differently, whether they are of sterner stuff or not. At a time when we see so much moral bankruptcy, where our continent cries out for answers and solutions, we need more than ever before men and women of character. As we fight to hold on to our heritage and to our continental dreams and the key ingredients that unite and identify us as Africans, we need men and women of character. You measure a man or a woman by how much they respect who they are. Who you are is not to be defined by the material things you accumulate in life. It is not the adoration of fans or the awards hanging on our walls that matter. All those things can disappear or be devoid of their importance. Who are you really to be found in your values, how you remain rooted and focused to no matter how high you climb up the ladder or success as defined by the world. Who are you? Who you are lies deep inside. It cannot be duplicated. Stop trying to copy others. Be who you are and make peace with your uniqueness and your special talents. To remember that your home and your roots are in Africa, even when you are playing for European kings or American moguls, is respecting who you are. Hugh lived in the US for many years. But even while he was there, he was fighting apartheid with his music and his powerful words. Today he still tours the world non-stop, but he never stops calling South Africa home. In the meantime, others live and want nothing to do with their home country because they are embarrassed by who they are. You measure a man or a woman by how much they respect other people. Sometimes as fans, we never get to know the real people behind the mask of celebrity. I have had the fortune of sharing the backstage of life with you, away from the lights, the press, and the adoring fans. You is always thinking, how can I light the place up? How can I make you smile? How can I share something that will make you laugh? Other men of his stature are always thinking, how can I get more out of this situation? Respect other people. Respect your elders. The other side of respecting people is for parents respecting their children. Too many parents do not respect their children's talents. They want to force their children to be something they are not. If your child kicks a ball through a window, you get angry and shout at them instead of applauding them and saying, what a shot. You are going to be a great footballer. School is important, extremely important, but we must nurture our children's other talents, because that is who they are. And in respecting that, we are respecting God, because He doesn't duplicate talent. No two people are alike. How will Africa succeed if we suppress our children's unique talents and gifts? You measure a man or a woman by their attitude towards life. In Zimbabwe, there's a word, "Zvakapresa," it means things are tight. There are some people who, when you greet them and ask how they are, no matter what it is happening in their lives, even if they just had a new baby or got a new job or found a new love, will respond, zvakapresa. They just got married, zvakapresa. They bought a new house, zvakapresa. And if they are at the top of their career, still zvakapresa. Hugh, on the other hand, reminds me just by how he carries himself, how he is always laughing, how he always has a joke that no, things may be falling apart around you, but it is how you bear your burdens that matters. It is how you face your challenges and victories and defines you. It is how thankful you are for all the things that actually have gone well, all the things and people you have around you. This is what really matters. In Shona, we clap our hands before eating and say, I'm sorry. Like this, and as a way of saying thank you that someone made the effort to make that food. Thank you that you have food to eat. And thank you, somebody has just paid the food for the food.
Yeah.
Like you did this afternoon. Thank you, Hugh. And there are a lot of little things like this in our African culture that are meant to remind us to be grateful, to remind us of how the beauty of life, to remind us that despite everything else, we are blessed. It is because we are forgetting these things that we resort to Zakapress. You measure a man or a woman by how much they give back. You see, when you become successful or wealthy or a celebrity, it is too easy to start thinking that you are special, that you made all these things happen by yourself. I remember when we had dinner with Hugh Masekela in Zimbabwe lately. I told him, hey, I'm a superstar. and I said it like I know what it means. But I don't really understand what a star is. But I just wanted to get his reaction. I thought, okay, Mtukudzi is a star. Sometimes we forget all the people who have worked tirelessly around us. From our parents, our friends, our colleagues, to get us where we are, and so we forget to give back. Hugh never stops giving back. He is director of the Lunchbox Fund, which feeds students in schools around Soweto. He continues to nurture musicians like me, show them the ropes and instill in them the richer and meaningful values of life. Brayu also lends his support to the Ubuntu Education Fund, a New York-based charity that runs a school in the Eastern Cape, here in South Africa. Hugh gives back. He is involved with the Ifaletu Foundation for the return of struggle art that left South Africa under the apartheid regime, and with the Serious Trust, a UK-based charity that develops music strategies for underprivileged youth in London's inner cities. On a final note, Brayu is in the process of formalization and registering his own organization, the Hugh Masekela Heritage Trust, with the intention of taking it across the continent of Africa, aimed at restoring traditional African culture and heritage. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, when I look back to the time of the first wireless broadcast I spoke about earlier, to the time when there was only one radio in the neighborhood where I lived in Highfield, and everyone would go to the shop to listen to it. And when I compare that time to now, when all of us have one device that acts as a radio, a TV, a phone, a calendar, a camera in our pockets, and I realize that things haven't really changed. Still the same. On the surface, it looks like they have, but it's really the things that matter, like respect, discipline, love, family, and honoring one's root. Those things never change. And it is by those things that we are all measured. Respect, discipline, love, family, honoring one's roots. To you, my brother, my friend, thank you for your humility. Thank you for the lesson that you give us by being who you are. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for your action on stage. Like, it inspires me. I don't feel old when I watch you on stage. I feel I'm still a boy, I can do that. And thank you for never forgetting which direction was home. It is my wish that more young Africans can learn that one lesson. Which direction is home? In a physical, spiritual, and emotional sense. Which direction is home? Because if we can remember that, even when we prosper as a continent, we will remain grounded in those values that will ensure that our prosperity is not empty, but full of meaning. Thank you, Keynote.